What's going on, ladies and gents? It's your boy Q back with another video in our continuing series on building the Kali Purple virtual SOC in a box, a security operations center in a box. If you're liking the content that I'm actually putting out, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and hit the notify bell so that you can get notified whenever I put out new content. Also, feel free to leave any comments to if you're to as far as feedback on this project or any ideas of future projects that I might be able to do some videos on. In this video, I'm going to bring up our diagram. In this video, we are going to be looking at building our SIEM, a Security Information and Event Manager portion of our virtual machine of this entire enclave here. So previous videos, we built the firewall, which is an OpenSense firewall. We've configured it, and we've also built each of these three virtual machines from a VM standpoint. We also installed and updated the operating system, which is Kali Purple. Today we're going to be actually configuring this guy here. So without further ado, let's jump over to the virtual machine. So I'm logged into my detect node here. There's a couple things we're going to do first before we actually jump in. Let's pull up a terminal right quick. For those who have seen the video that I did when I built this, and also specifically when I built built and configured the firewall, if I do a ping and I just go kali-purple.cdx.ftss. CDX.ftss is the domain I'm actually using. You notice I'm getting replies, but you'll also notice here my actual host name, or if I actually do this, hostname --fqdn, my host name is actually detect.cdx.ftss. What I'm going to do is actually kind of rectify that. I'm going to basically change the name of this host to match this, because this is the DNS entry that's actually at the firewall. Same thing for the other two nodes that'll be part of this SOC, the identify and the respond nodes, but those will be done in their own video. So first thing we're going to do is issue a sudo hostname ctl set-hostname. Actually, before I even do this, let's do this. Let's do a sudo vi/etc/hosts, because we're going to edit this file first. Enter our sudo password. First thing we're going to do is remove detect here. Since we're in VI, we're going to hit I to get in insert mode. We're going to remove detect and name it what it's supposed to be, Kali-purple. And again, I'm only doing this just to make sure that when we're following our instructions, the instructions that I made, we're not bouncing back and forth based off of, okay, the instructions say this, I'm going to do that. The domain I'm actually keeping. I'm staying with the cdx.ftss, but I want to make sure all of this stuff is consistent. And we're also going to change this to also Kali-purple. Escape to get out of edit mode, shift : enter global, and do a right and quit, WQ, hit enter. Now we're going to do the actual changing of the host name. That will be sudo hostname ctl set-hostname, and then the name you want it, not the fully qualified, just the hostname portion. Kali Purple. So now it's saying unable to resolve detect. That's fine. So now what we're going to do, and that's just because we changed the actual host name already. So what we're going to do now is reboot. Sudo reboot, or you could do sudo init6. Either way, they both will reboot the system. And as it comes up, we shall see a new name, the new name, which is Kali-purple. It'll be in the upper left-hand corner of the display. Not this up here. This is the name of the virtual machine that in vSphere. So as you see up here, it says Kali-purple. That lets you know it took effect. I'm gonna full screen this temporarily just to get my full resolution, and then escape so I can get back out of that. Let's log in. CDX admin is what I used. My sudo password, super secret password. Now we can actually get started with what we came here to do, and that is install the the Elastic Stack. So I recommend opening up a terminal because that's obviously where you're going to be putting your commands. Bring that out the way a little bit. And then also we're going to open up a notepad of some sort, a graphical text editor. This is optional, but it makes life a little easier. And then we're going to open up our Firefox, or any browser really, but I'm going to use Firefox since it's here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to bring this guy down, do a little housekeeping, set up my workspace. Bring that guy over there, and then I'll set this guy up. You'll see why I'm doing all this in a little bit. It makes life a little easier. Because there's some commands you'll have to edit in your based off of your environment. So to start, we're going to pull up my instructions. So I'm going to go to google.com. What we're going to enter is GitLab. We're going to enter Kali Purple, and we're going to enter vSphere. So the second line here where it says topics, we're going to click on that because my instructions that I wrote is the second one here, the one that says Q/ vSphere Kali Purple. So we're going to go there. And what we're going to do now, before I actually get started, I do want to point this out. It is February 28th, 2024. As of the writing of these instructions, the current version of Elastic that was actually out was 8.11.3. Right now, the current version is actually 8.12.4. I've been running into some issues trying to get that actually installed and configured properly. So what I'm going to do is we're going to target this version so that everything kind of falls the way these instructions go. So that's just a little note that I wanted to put out there. So let's get back to where we were going, and that is we're going to be configuring the detect node. So we have three major components we're going to do. The SIEM installation configuration, then we set up Fleet Server, and then we install Beats. So let's start with this guy. We're already logged in, and the first thing we're going to do is take this. This is one of the reasons why I like having the browser on the VM set to these instructions, because you can just copy and paste. So what I'm going to do over here is actually set this up a little bit. There's a couple things I know I'm going to need. This process is going to generate a random password for the Elastic super user, which is Elastic. So I'm going to set up an area for that, and also the Kibana. Actually, I don't even need the Kibana enrollment tokens piece, because it's going to be pretty much the next step. You cut and paste it in there, no changes. But now that we have this guy on our clipboard, we're going to paste it right here. The reason why we're doing that is because, again, these instructions say .kali.purple as the domain. I'm changing it to match my environment. So my environment will be cdx.ftss. And that's a K there. That doesn't need to be there. So Kali-purple, the actual name of this host, cdx.ftss. And the second thing I'm going to do, since we are targeting that 8.11.3, we're going to make sure that that's the version we get. So we're going to do an equal sign 8.11.3. Now we're good to copy this, which is doing two things. One, it's going to create a environmental variable called Kali. That's called hostname. Its value is kali-purple.cdx.ftss, and then we're going to go ahead and install we're going to download and install Elasticsearch 8.11.3. So let's go ahead and get that going. Enter a password. And during this process, toward the end, it will generate that randomly generated password for the super user Elastic. And I'll just copy it out of here and paste it up there because we'll need that a little later on. And the reason why we're copying it now is because there's not a surefire way of being able to recover that password later. The only thing you can do is reset it if you don't know what it was. and then that'll involve running some commands and whatnot at the command line. But we'll return once this process is complete. And we're back. As you can see, the process is complete. We have our prompt back. And right here where it says generated password for the Elastic built-in superuser is, there's our password. So let's go ahead and get that guy copied, paste it up here so we have it for safekeeping for later use. Let's move on to the next step. As we see, we've installed that, we've copied our password. Now the next thing is going to be, we'll make some adjustments to the Etsy Elasticsearch YAML file. Now I've noticed for whatever reason, I have to understand why. I believe since 2024.1 version of Kali Purple, the sed command doesn't necessarily work as written. I've run and tested this before, previous to 2024.1, and it works without a hitch. But now I'm going to have to manually do this first step here. So we'll actually manually do both of these. So what we're going to do is edit this file, which is the Elasticsearch YAML file, the configuration file. So we'll just copy that and do a sudo vi, and then we'll paste that in. And now all we're doing is finding the line that states cluster initial master nodes, and we're going to comment it out. We're just going to insert a pound sign in front of it, or hashtag, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to zoom through this, which is toward the bottom, really. You can scroll all the way down. And here's our line right there. So we'll move our cursor to the beginning of that line. We'll hit I for insert, and we'll just go ahead and add a line, a pound sign. Another thing we're going to do is add the line discovery type single node. So I'm going to copy this. And it just needs to be added at the end. It doesn't really matter where it's at, but I will put it at the end. So we're going to, since it wants to comment naturally, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to paste that in, and we're good. Escape to get out of insert, colon, WQ to write and quit. All right, so now we've got those set up. The next thing we're going to do is install Kibana. And we could take this guy, I don't really need to put it up here, but we will be editing this. Just like Elasticsearch, we want to target that 8.11.3. So equals 8.11.3. And I have a -y so it auto confirms it. So it's going to go ahead and pull that down and do its install. Once again, I'll return when this is complete. And we're back. As we can see, no errors, no issues. Kibana has been installed. So we just completed this step here, 9.1.2. We're going to move down to the second section here. We're going to copy this line as is. So we can just take that guy, and we're going to paste it in here to generate security key. What it's going to do is generate encryption keys, and this command here, T, will actually add those lines to the end of the Kibana YAML. So before I even do that, let me clear the screen right quick. I can do a sudo cat /etc Kibana YAML, and because of the path, it needs the sudo to be able to do anything to it. And as you can see, the last line in here says it's commented out as unified search, autocomplete, that kind of thing. So let's run that command. And hit enter. So those are the 3 lines that were generated. So if I rerun the actual cat command, as you can see now, those have been added to the bottom underneath that last line we saw before. And as you see here. So next line, we're going to do an echo server host, blah, blah, blah. Once again, this has that kali-purple domain. We're going to make sure that reads appropriately. Go ahead and paste that in. Come back. I'll just do it right on the line here instead of doing it in the notepad. We'll change that to the domain that you have configured in your environment. Mine is cdx.ftss. Go ahead and hit enter. And once again, if we do a sudo cat, you see it's down there at the bottom. And now this step is critical. Verify there is only one entry in the etc host file that maps to your configured IP address to the configured hostname. Now, if you're following along exactly as I'm doing it, there should not be another. So what I'm going to do is just do a sudo, I'm going to clear the screen here, so it'll make it a little easier. Sudo cat /etc hosts. And as we see, there is one line that has 192.168.30.5 or whatever IP you configured, and it says, this is my host name, fully qualified, and then the host name itself. There's no other lines here that have the same IP addressing anything else. So we're good, just as it shows over here. So now we're going to go ahead and first I'll show you something else here before we do this next part. We're going to issue a command sudo systemctl status Elasticsearch, if I can spell it right, and Kibana. We just want to know the status of them. As you see, they're both loaded, they're both dead, so they're not running, and they're both set as disabled. So you have to manually start these. This next line here is going to do two things. Let's go ahead and paste that in there. That didn't work. I did that the wrong way. Okay. So now what this does, sudo systemctl enable changes this from disabled to enabled. That means that sets this service to auto start upon boot. And when you say now, it not only sets it to auto start, it starts the service right away. So we're doing both of those at one time. Go home right quick, delete this guy out of there, and we're just going to go ahead and run that. The symlinks are linking these to start up, to set as auto start. And we're waiting for the services to actually be started. Once we get our prompt back, hopefully without errors, we will actually, that should let us know that they have been started successfully. And we can verify that by rerunning. Yep, no errors. So we can verify that by rerunning the status command. As you can see now, active running for Elasticsearch, active running for Kibana. So we'll go ahead and hit Q to get out of that. Clear the screen. Moving right along. Now, right here, we're going to enroll Kibana in Elasticsearch. So what this is going to do is actually not necessarily straight up enroll it. It will create an enrollment token. And we'll do another step, which is the next one, to actually enroll it. So let's go ahead and get that command pasted in there. And once again, no changes needed. Just run it. And it will give us a key that looks similar to this in the same format. So here's our key. We're going to go ahead and copy that. And here's one of the reasons why I wasn't going to just go ahead and put it up there, because the very next step is for us to actually go to not this link, but it's going to be basically http:// your fully qualified domain name of your node, and then the ports 5601. What I'm going to actually do is actually open this in a new tab. Of course, it's not going to find anything because I'm just going to cheat and just change this to cdx.ftss, and now it should find it. Yep. And it immediately should ask us for an enrollment token. That will be what we have on our clipboard. Now, you hit configure Elastic, and it should ask you for a code, a 6-digit code. Where do we get that? The very next step here, we're going to run another command. Sudo user/user/share Kibana bin Kibana verification code. So we're going to run that. Paste that over here. It'll spit out a 6-digit code, 221, In my case, 221.019. Yours will differ. We just put that in here and hit verify. Seems like everything's running pretty smooth. And once we're done here, we'll have 3 green check marks here. Matter of fact, it'll probably bring us right to a login screen. If you get to that login screen, you know this step has worked successfully. Do not log in. Not at this point. Once we get that, while we're waiting on that, let's take a look at the next steps. Got our verification code entered, and it should bring you right here, where it's asking for a username and whatnot. As I've stated up here, I believe, do not log in here. It just generates some steps that make it a headache. So what we're going to do is jump right into enabling HTTPS. So we're going to make this thing use a secure cert. So here we are. We're at our login screen. So coming back here, we're on 9.1.3, enabling HTTPS. So now here, this here is going to ask for you to generate a certificate authority. It's going to ask for a password. My recommendation in a lab environment is create a password, kind of make it secure or whatever you want to use. But these next few steps, there's different portions that's going to ask you for passwords. Just for simplicity's sake, especially since this is a lab, I'm going to use the same password across the board. So it makes it easier for me. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this command in here. The very first thing it's going to ask you is where do you want this desired output file to be? We're just going to hit enter to keep the default. And now you're going to enter your password. Only have to enter it once. You're good. Again, it's one that you're creating specifically for that CA. But it's also going to be the same one that I use for all the certs. That's how I'm doing it. It doesn't have to be, but for simplicity's sake, that's how we're going to do this. Again, accept the default name. We just hit enter. We entered that secure password. And now, this one I'm going to copy and I'm going to go ahead and paste it up here because there are some changes I need to make. So again, it's the domain name. pdx.ftss. Go ahead and do this. That's also here as well. And that's pretty much it. And now we'll go ahead and copy this into here. Enter password for the CA. This is obviously going to be the same one you just used. And enter a password for this certificate specifically. Once again, I'm using the same password. And now these three, no changes need to be made. I'm just going to copy and paste them. And it's going to create 3 different certificates. And it's going to ask me for a password 3 different times. So I'm going to use the same one. We're done with that piece. Down here, we are going ahead and changing ownership and some modifying permissions. We just literally copy to the clipboard, paste all that in, good to go. And now, what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and make some modifications here because again, we have that domain name in there. Get it on the clipboard. Let's see, we have right here. And everything else looks the same. So what this is going to do is going to echo these lines into the etc Kibana YAML. So we'll have a server SSL enabled to be true, server SSL certificate, this path, server SSL key, this path, and server base public base URL will be this URL here. All that's added to the etc Kibana YAML file. Let's go ahead and copy that, paste it, and enter. And clear just to show sudo cat / etc Kibana, yep, Kibana YAML. And as we see, these are those lines right there that were just added. And there were a few things that were automatically generated when we were doing the enrollment of the Kibana into Elasticsearch and whatnot. These were automatically generated here. Now, our next step, hopefully this is easy to follow along with. This next one, once again said, we're just going to do this manually. We're looking for the lines that have encryption key, and we're going to comment those out. So let's jump in this guy. So vi etc Kibana YAML. And again, it's toward the bottom. Go up some. So it's these XPack lines right here. There's 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, because as you can see right here, encryption key, encryption key, encryption key. These were the original ones that were placed in here before, but that was before before we started setting it up for SSL or TLS. So what we're going to do here, insert, we're going to put our pound signs on all 3 of those because we're going to rerun the commands that generated these, and generate new encryption keys now bound to the SSL certs. So we're going to go ahead and hit escape to get out of insert mode, right quit. And that's what this line here. This line is almost exactly the same as the previous time we generated those encryption keys, but we're having a force in there. And as we see, the last lines on here are those server SSL or server public base URL. Those are the last lines in the file now. Once we write this, now we do a sudo cat. Now the last lines are those 3 new encryption keys. Now all that's left is for us to bounce the Kibana service. So we're going to go ahead and restart Kibana. All right. So now Kibana is going to take a little bit in the background to restart, and to illustrate that, we'll go to our other tab where we were at the Kibana login screen. Only thing I'm going to change, I'm going to go ahead and take all this login stuff off. But the main thing I'm going to change is just from HTTP to HTTPS. And we will hit enter. More than likely, this will show a page cannot be displayed potentially. Oh, no, it's already good. Once you get this warning, potential security risk, it's there. So we're going to go ahead and hit advanced and accept risk and continue. And here you go. We have HTTPS and it's welcome to Elastic. Now, for those who are itching to do so, now we're ready for login. It's this password here. Remember that from way back when? The username is Elastic. And we're going to go ahead and paste that nice little secure random password there. We don't have to worry about saving it, at least not right now. While that's logging in, we basically just went through these. So when we get logged in, we're going to click Explore on my own because it's going to give you options of adding integrations and that kind of thing. We want to do some housekeeping first. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, explore on my own, and we're going to go up to the profile. We're going to edit the password. We're going to set a password that we know. And also what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on dark mode just because I'm that guy. And that's basically it for the seam, for getting the Elastic Elasticsearch and Kibana setup. So let's go ahead and do that. Explore on my own. Come up here, profile, change password. I still have this on my clipboard, so I'm gonna go ahead and paste that there. Set my own. Confirm it. I'm not gonna worry about saving it just yet. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to dark mode. Changes. And something else I would recommend at this point is, since you're on as a super user, I would create a separate account for administration and use the super user as sort of a break glass just in case you can't get in with that other account. I'm not going to do that in this step here, but we're done with the setup of the scene. So now we're going to go to Fleet, setting up Fleet server. So let's go ahead and expand that. It's going to have us hit our hamburger icon so we can pull down our menu on the left side, scroll all the way down to management and get to Fleet. And then we will add Fleet server. So let's do that. Get our hamburger, scroll down, Fleet under management. And now we're going to hit add Fleet server. So, according to our instructions, we're going to add this line here. So basically, your URL. Take this guy, copy it. I'm going to put it down here, but we're changing the port number. It's going to be 8220. And we will call this Fleet Server Policy. We'll hit Generate Fleet Server Policy. Make sure everything's good. HTTPS, it is Kali Purple, CDX FTSS, this port. Boom. Let's go ahead and do it. Why are you saying an evaluate? Maybe because I might have. Sure. That must be. Oh, I flipped them around. My bad. This is why you got to pay attention. Go ahead and cut that. Paste that there. Take that guy out. Put it here. There's your name of your policy. That's the URL. Now let's go. We look at our next steps. Once we've created that, it will generate code for you to copy and paste into your command prompt or your terminal so that you can actually install the Elastic. It'll download and install the appropriate version of the Elastic agent. And it will configure it to where with the appropriate values here to include service tokens, the fingerprint, which was established when you created your certificate authority. We are going to make one little modification. We're going to actually add a -- force at the end of that. So it'll look more like this guy. So this is the part that's going to be interesting here. This is the part I couldn't get past when with the current version, the 8.12.2. We're going to go ahead and copy this, paste this in, and we'll go ahead and add a space and then -- force on the end. Now we'll go ahead and hit enter. Now while that's doing that, one of the things you'll be looking for, once it's complete, this 2 will fill in, sort of like the 1 became a check mark. This will become a check mark, and this will become a check mark. Green. Because it'll do, it'll show just like this. And it'll give you an option of continue enrolling in Elastic Agent. We're not going to click that. We're just going to close that window at the little X that's up there in the corner. So once this is complete downloading and installing, I will return. So I'm going to pause the video. So I've returned just so you can actually see here. While we're waiting on this, I want you to see on the video, once this install is complete, we will see the agent check in with the Fleet server. And we'll go ahead and see these things pop green. Once what you'll see on this side, once the copying file is complete, and it starts to try to start the service, you'll actually start seeing telemetry being generated on the screen, and that lets you know that it's sending data, and then this will give you an indication that the server is receiving and is registered, that the agent is registered properly. And actually, the more I think about it, I believe it's just the Fleet server service registering with Elasticsearch, because we put the agent on there later. No, the agent. This is the agent. One of the modifications that could have been done if you really wanted to is this IP address could have been changed to your fully qualified domain name as well, as long as that port 9200 is still sitting there. And that is still HTTPS. And as a reminder, adding the dash dash force at the end, this space dash dash force after the port 8220, that's kind of key because it tends to break if it won't necessarily fully deploy if you don't use that force. In a lot of cases, I'm not going to say 100%, but most cases. And then you're kind of stuck with a half deployed agent, which is never really good to clean up from. I forgot how long this was actually going to take, so what I'm going to do is pause the video. Once I start seeing telemetry, I'm going to go ahead and unpause it. All right, now we're back with some with telemetry starting to be shipped to the Elasticsearch backend. That's what I believe this is happening right here, to the index. And we should shortly see this turn into a green check mark and 3 to confirm connection, because that's what it's trying to do, is confirm the connection now. And looks like it's been successfully done, and here we go. This didn't turn into a green check mark, but this one does. So what we're going to do, we're not going to do that check. We're just going to go ahead and X out of that. We're going to go here to agent policies, and we should see our fleet server policy. There it is. So now we're going to click on that, and we're going to add an integration. And let's take a look at our instructions here. Adding an integration. What are we going to add? The Elastic agent. So we're going to go on the left side, you're going to see browse integrations. We'll choose the category Elastic Stack, and then it allows you to find that Elastic agent there. Go ahead and get that going. Remember, Elastic Stack, not the Elasticsearch SDK. And there's your Elastic agent. Let's just verify what else we're going to do. Just add Elastic agent. So let's just go ahead and add that. And it should add it to the list that's already there that had 2 integrations. I don't believe we changed anything here. Yeah, just go down and hit save and continue, and save and deploy changes. That'll pop up. Save and continue, save and deploy changes. And we've got a successful addition. We're going to do this one more time. This time we're going to add integration for our firewall. Our firewall is OpenSense, but of course it'll be named in here as pfSense. So let's just go ahead and, because that actually works for both OpenSense and pfSense. Go ahead and hit add pfSense. I'm going to go ahead and add it. So hit add pfSense. This will have a modification here. We're not going to change the integration name. Syslog host, we'll make sure this says 0.0.0.0, and the syslog port should read 9001 if I remember correctly. Yep, 9001, and we do have the firewall already set for that. It's actually already shipping, but it's not being received by anything, so it's just shipping out into the ether. Go ahead and hit save and continue. Save and deploy changes. While that's doing that, now we're gonna go over to our Discover tab, and we're going to search to see, are we receiving data from our firewall. I'm gonna copy this right quick. Now we have all those. There's the pfSense. So here in our hamburger, very first thing, analytics, we're gonna go to Discover. And up here in the search, not the top search, but the actual query field here, we're going to go ahead and say we want to see the stuff for pfSense log, and we'll hit update. As you can see, we've got a lot of data already. Let me make sure I didn't botch that. Take that off. There we go. And hit this. Do this. Data, stream data set should be pfSense. I want to say that said pfSense. .log, yeah. Oh, I hit update. Hold on. Fresh. Stream data set. Should be receiving pfSense logs. Go back to I might have messed something up on the integration. Look at my agent policy, fleet server, pfSense. I want to make sure that I did everything properly because I feel like I rushed through that. We have 9001 and 0.0.0. We have all of that. Making sure there's no spaces or anything. Yep, I haven't changed anything on that. And one way I can make sure of that is I can actually go byzantium.cdx.ftss, and I remember that port being 8443. Advanced, accept risk. If I remembered that properly, I probably did not. There we go. So now I want to set up, I believe, a system log files, I want to say. Settings. Yes. Logging, I believe. Log targets. There we go. 9001, it's Kali Purple to CDX FTSS. So this is set up appropriately. Let's go back and look at this. Our not dashboard, discover. Yep, there we go. I don't know what it was, but we're starting to receive data now. So as you can see right here, what is it? Actually, hold on. We're still not receiving data stream data set. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, pfSense log. So we are receiving this. And the way you can tell, not just that it's the log, but if we were to, let's open up one of these guys. It should be coming from, yep, the source address is coming from the firewall. Yep, there we go. Byzantium CDX FTSS. So yes, now we're working. So sometimes it takes a little troubleshooting right off the bat, even when you're doing exactly what you're expected to do. We've already deployed, and we see that data. So now we're going to add another integration here, or actually this is another policy. So let's go back to our Kibana. Get our little hamburger, go back down to management, so we can go to fleet. And here you see the fleet server policy, correct? So now let's make sure we're doing this right. Management fleet, and we're going to, as you see that there, create an agent policy. So, oh yes, we're going to agent policies. Now we create an agent policy. This one will be Linux server policy. And let's double check, make sure there's anything else we have to do. Create it, yep, lower right, we'll hit create agent policy. And that'll bring it up and it'll have system already in as an integration. So that's this. It'll show up right under fleet server policy. So now when we take a look at this, it has system. Don't worry about the number after it, it's just auto numbering. System 2. And now we're going to add integrations here. We're going to add that Elastic agent. So same way we did the last time. Elastic stack, Elastic agent. Make sure it is exactly the same. No changes. We're just making sure that it says Linux server policy when we say where to add it. We do the save and continue, and we'll add the agent later. That's the big difference here. So we're adding the Elastic agent. Linux server policy already set because that's where we launched from. Save and continue. And right here, instead of this, we're going to say add agent later. We just want to set it up to where as we add new systems to monitor, we can assign it to an actual policy and it'll automatically add all of the integrations that you have configured for that policy. Got it there. Actually, I'll go ahead and go full screen right now. Make it so I don't keep bouncing up there. We added our Elastic agent. I hit got it so we don't. And that's it for this part. Now the last piece. Let's get beats going. Let me stretch this out. Now we're back to doing things here. So let me clear the screen here. We're going to copy this guy. I'm going to come up here because I believe I have to make some modifications. Let's see. No, I don't. So let's go ahead and get this guy going. This command will obtain the Elasticsearch fingerprint. So it should print the fingerprint on the screen. You're going to want that. There's another way we could actually, well, yeah. Earlier there was another way we could have got it, but get that password in there. There's our, now this we want to copy. I can just double click on it. Now I'll put Elasticsearch CA fingerprint. Depending on what you see, it says fingerprint or thumbprint. Either way, it's the exact same thing. Right, this will be needed for Metricbeat and Filebeat. Let's get Metricbeat going. I'm gonna look at this right quick. Nothing needs to be changed, so I can just paste this right in there. That will download and install Metricbeat. And while that's doing that, let's look at our next steps. We will be editing Metricbeat. This will require a little bit, we're going to definitely be doing some manual intervention here, just to make sure we do things right. Some of these parts I actually did try to do some automation. It didn't quite go well, for whatever reason, so that's why I just made sure that these steps have you do it manually. I caught myself trying to write a script that would actually do it. I was frustrated. It wasn't working the way I expected it to, so. Once this guy's set up, we're going to want to use, and this time I'm going to just use Nano, just because. Go ahead and get that copied. As we see, once we get in our editor, we're going to look for a section called titled Kibana, and then we're going to make some changes here. So we're done here. Let's go ahead and get in this guy. Now we're going to look for the Kibana section. General, we have dashboards. Here's Kibana. So first thing is going to have the host and the name. We're going to uncomment that line. It's going to say host localhost 5601. We're going to change it to read this. And actually, I'm going to modify it once I paste it in there. So that line is right here. I'm actually going to just delete the whole thing out. Beautiful thing about Nano, I don't have to necessarily enter edit mode, insert mode. So we'll paste that in. And I'm changing this to, you guessed it, cdx.ftss. And note this. The line itself had the host itself, or in this case localhost, and it had a port. But what we're doing here, we're changing it to read the HTTPS URL, the URL for your host, the fully qualified domain name that you've configured, and no port. So keep that in mind. And as to say right here, note the absence of the port number, and really note the inclusion of HTTPS as opposed to just the host name. So we have that. The next thing we're doing, right below that line, we're going to insert all of this. So this is going to be as simple as copy paste. We're not changing any of that. We're just going to go over here, enter, and what I will do is make sure that all this stuff lines up. So delete those two, because this is a YAML file. You want to pay attention to spacing. Now we're going to the section labeled Elasticsearch output. So now that will be below Elastic Cloud outputs. Here's Elasticsearch output. Note this one says hosts, and it has in braces localhost 9200. We're going to replace that with this. Once again, changing the domain name. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Stay right there too. I'm going to paste that in. Change my and again, no port, and it includes the HTTPS. And then now we're going to go down to the section next line here. Where it says, let me see, make sure. Uncomment the line in this section that begins with username. So we're in this section. Username is right here. We're going to enable this line by uncommenting it. And what we're going to do, and again, this is a lab. Normally, you would have more secure ways of doing this, but you'd have your, since this is a lab, your password is going to literally sit here in plain text. Let's see here. We're going to leave it as Elastic because I did not create another account. And we're going to uncomment that one, and I'm going to put in my super secret password. Yeah. So let's see here. And immediately below that, we're going to add the following line. And it says verify alignment. I put that in there because, again, it's a YAML file. It's very finicky. So we're going to 2 spaces in. And actually, what I'm going to do is copy this guy. But I'm not going to copy all of it. I'm going to copy everything up to the quote. And as we see in this example here, the fingerprint is inside of quotes. So I will copy this, paste it here. I'll put a close quote, move this guy in there. And now I'm going to get this guy, copy, come down here and paste. There we go. That's what we want it to look like. And we'll save the file. And since this is nano, you'll use the Control X, then Y, then Enter. So Control X, save buffer, yes, that's Y, and hit Enter to use that name. And we are done with that file. Now we're going to issue the following command to enable Metricbeat modules for Elasticsearch. This may take a moment, so once I issue this command, I'm going to pause the, actually I don't know if this was the one that's going to take a moment, but we'll see. If it takes over 5 seconds, I will go ahead and pause this and return when it's done. Nope, enabled Elasticsearch, cool. Now that we've enabled that, we need to go edit that file, the configuration file for it. Let's go ahead and do that. See, again, we're doing this manually so we can make sure that we're doing everything appropriately. Does not exist. Hold on. Control X. Let's just make sure of this. So let's do a, I forget, this is one thing about the Kali 2024.1. Some of the paths have changed, so I have to find this. Give me a moment here. Alright, so I fat fingered in my instructions. I actually notice how it says sudo nano etc modules. The path is actually etc Metricbeat modules D. Yeah, Elasticsearch. So let's go ahead and get that guy. So we're going to go sudo nano and that path. That's where we're trying to edit. I will make those adjustments so that when you're trying to follow this, it will be correct. We're going to uncomment the host line if it's commented, which it is. Oh, actually it's not. And we're going to change it to actually read our HTTPS. Notice this time there is a port number and we're going to keep it. So what we're going to do, come over here, change localhost to the name of the host name. So kali-purple.cdx.ftss. And we'll also make sure it's HTTPS. So HTTPS, the actual fully qualified domain name, and port 9200. We're going to do the same thing down here that we did earlier. Uncomment this, uncomment that. This one we have to change to Elastic. And our password. And let's see if there's anything else we're changing here. API key we are keeping as commented out. Yep, that's exactly the same. So Control X, Y, enter. Now let's go ahead and enable the Elasticsearch XPack. We're going to modify this one. Once again, that's messed up. So sudo nano and this path. This one's going to have a little more to it. So once again, we're doing the same things. HTTPS, get rid of localhost. And we're leaving the port as it states right there. Protocol is a line that we're going to add. Protocol is space and a quote, HTTPS, close quote. This one, we're going to make sure it says Elastic. We're going to uncomment it. Password, uncomment it. We're going to put our password. And now we're about to add some stuff that's not even here. So immediately below this line, really you can go right below API key 2 because it's going to remain commented, but I'll put it right below this. We're going to do the 2 spaces in, SSL, colon, and then, actually, you know something? I'm going to copy this as is. Copy, and see what happens here. Alright, so what that did was put too many spaces. I could do that. I'm just removing 2 spaces if you do that. And of course, let's get our fingerprint again. Back down here. And we're going to replace all of this inside the quotes with that fingerprint. Everything else stays the same. True, enabled is true, verification mode is certificate. And it looks just like this. Control X, Y, enter. Alright, now we're going to do sudo Metricbeat test config. I'm going to clear the screen first before I do that. We're going to add that in there. Go ahead and hit enter. The configuration is okay. If there were any issues, it would let you know here. Then we're going to run test modules. These errors at the beginning are okay. That's fine. The first couple of lines. But the rest of it, we should see, and we'll see one there. The rest of these are okay. And now the last part here we're going to do is set up Metricbeat index patterns to load and load dashboards into Kibana. This will take a while, so I will start this guy. Yep, and I will return. I will pause this video. I will return when this is complete.